What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Force Strategy Gaming. We're here at game number 3 now between JYP and PuMa, and PuMa in a significant lead, winning those first 2 games in the series pretty convincingly, in all honesty. Now, in the first game, we saw again the Cloak Banshee into that Marine tank SCV Raven timing push, and he was just able to contain JYP on one base. Now, last game, we saw PuMa again open up with Cloak Banshees. JYP attempted early aggression, but unfortunately wasn't able to do so because PuMa scouted it out and had enough bunkers and SCVs to defend against it. And so because of that, JYP took a lot of Cloak Banshee damage harass early on, and PuMa also hiding a third expansion at which JYP didn't scout until the very end of the game, just put him in a significant lead for majority of that game. So very strong showing there in those first 2 games from PuMa. PuMa obviously a very solid player. JYP unfortunately just not doing enough damage and not getting that proper scouting that was necessary to be able to contend with that. Really, what could have happened is if JYP had scouted out that third, which, you know, it's not intuitive to scout a position like that. So we certainly don't blame JYP. Hopefully at the professional level, that's something that you see happen more often, especially when he realizes how late PuMa's natural expansion was and the fact that there was no aggression. Those 2 things together should have tipped JYP off to the fact that there was a third up somewhere. But unfortunately, didn't end up catching wind of that, didn't realize it was there, and that was really his biggest downfall, taking that Banshee harass, and on top of that, not scouting out the third. But again, if JYP could have scouted out the third, he could have taken it out pretty easily because PuMa would have had no successful means of defending it, and then he could have, hopefully from that point, been able to continue and do some better damage. I think a really big problem, too, was the decision of that Colossus drop. That did not work at all for the reason we saw the heavy Viking numbers quickly took out that War Prism, and then even if he dropped the Colossus, the Vikings would have taken that out too. I think that's probably why we see more just straight up Zealot bombing, bringing Zealots in the War Prism and then warping in some more Zealots, maybe even some Stalkers and a Sentry or 2. Because bringing that Colossus against a Terran player who has Vikings is that's a straight up disaster, and there was unfortunately nothing that JYP could have done to defend against that, so it was a forced loss right there. So yeah, just a bunch of unfortunate situations for JYP. We can see JYP there trying to do a little bit of SCV harass with his probe, wasn't able to get much out at all. PuMa doing things a little bit differently this game, not even bothering to try to get that wall off early on, especially given the fact that this is such a small map with only one spawn location. He realized, hey, JYP is going to be here pretty early, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. And look at this, just completely mixing things up now, going for a 1 Rax into quick expand. You can see Marine heavy early on. Now, he does have that refinery up, but no one mining from it. And let's take a look at this. JYP, with his scouting, saw that refinery. So this is the kind of mental trickery, the basic kind of stuff that you can do. In doing this, in showing JYP a refinery, he tells him, hey, look at this, I'm mining, I've got a refinery up, but then the second that he gets the probe out of the base, immediately cuts all mining on the refinery, gets enough resources to get up this quick expansion and try to set him ahead economically early on. Proxy Pylon hiding over here for JYP, planning obviously eventually some sort of aggression, and deciding this time to just stick on the one base. So very, very clever, especially in this series. PuMa, you know, he's done so much early game aggression for those first 2 games. JYP's expecting it. So immediately he gets a robotics. He's like, I need to deal with Cloak Banshees. That's all I've been seeing. But that's not what's happening from PuMa. PuMa instead, he will be going bio heavy with that quick expand, and it will not be until JYP gets an observer inside of PuMa's base that he finally realizes what's going on, and he will realize at that point, hey, crap, I'm behind economically, and he'll really be forced to either immediately drop a Nexus and try to catch up a little bit, and hopefully do some sort of damage as well. JYP over here with that pylon, again, 2 proxy pylons, so certainly looks like he may be planning some aggression. Now, another big thing that this pylon does is also spot Banshee harass, because the Banshees are likely to be moving in this direction or in this direction. You can try to cut some over here as well. A lot of times you will see a pylon somewhere on this ridge here. In fact, this is a very popular spot to see any sort of aggression coming. And we can see right now JYP trying to push on up, didn't get much scouting done at all. There's the observer finally heading across. He did manage to see that one Rax with the refinery. He also saw that tech lab building, but didn't see that expansion. And again, it's not going to be until around the 7-minute mark that this first observer is finally in the base, scouting out PuMa's expansion. And then the light bulb finally turns on for PuMa, and he's like, oh, okay, so there isn't any aggression coming. And you can see right now dropping that expansion. Now they're just pretty comfortable. He's got those 2 gateways, 1 robo. He's coming out with the units necessary. Hasn't seen those Banshees yet, and as we can see, finally spotting that Expo that's being transferred over, so now he knows, crap, I'm behind in the economic game at the moment. He is certainly behind. He's going to be, because PuMa will have this up and saturated and running far before JYP has his up and saturated, and that's certainly going to be a little bit of a problem for him in the early game. So there it is, SCV is being transferred over there to that natural expansion. Observer moving in to try to check that tech. He wants to see is a factory up, there's our starport up, but as we can see here, PuMa just sticking to racks heavy at this point in the game. Stim pack coming through, combat concussive shell is done. We should be seeing that factory very soon, though, as I do expect PuMa to finally work his way up into Medivacs. Let's see him drop that. Should be really any moment now we should be seeing that factory dropped, and I believe it's coming through. Actually, no, wow, he went straight for that combat shield, so he will instead just be planning a push with what he has now for bio. He's actually going to be waiting for those Medivacs a little while longer, getting these upgrades, and I'm almost expecting a timing push here from PuMa, given the fact that he's opted for combat shields before working his way up into medevac play. Now back over here for JYP, that expansion is up, though he really doesn't have that saturate. There we go, finally transferring workers, and here comes some of that aggression from JYP, and this is exactly what PuMa is prepared for now that he decided to skip that factory and get that combat shield first. He's going to get that coming on through very shortly. JYP, unfortunately, wasn't able to push in there and do too much damage, and what is he going to do? Hopefully not sitting idly. Hopefully he does try to do something. If he's making this much of an aggressive stance, this is a very dangerous situation, though, with those two bunkers and the rest of this bio back here. We're actually going to see those Immortals push forward and try to take down that bunker very quickly. They do need to be careful about stimmed up Marines, and that stim pack is just about finished, and there we go. Factory now finally coming through as well. We also have a robotics bay for JYP, so working his way up into Colossus, and still JYP a little timid to engage, and I think he's waited a little bit too long, because now that Stimpack is in, PuMa is certainly in a very strong position to be able to repel this aggression and stop it from really doing much at all, and JYP again just kind of dancing back and forth. No one's really lost too much. In fact, PuMa slightly behind right now in terms of resources lost in this game. I believe I saw a canceled building, so that's going to play a part into do it, and there we go. Actually, there's that force field wall coming down with that Guardian Shield as well. He's trying to do what he can. PuMa still hasn't stimmed up, and he's waiting just a little bit longer. He's a little bit concerned about stimming up and damaging those units before he's got any medevacs in play. Maybe just finding it unnecessary, only stimming up kind of a portion of his units. We're going to see JYP continue up this aggression by a couple units there on the backside, finally coming on up to assist. And JYP still really hasn't done much damage at all. You can see they are about even, and there it is, stimmed up Marines and Mirage catching JYP's units out of position. A couple more warped in units trying to do it again, but PuMa will actually be shredding through this right now. We've got a few more warp ins. He's just trying to micro away from those Zealots, doing that move shoot command and doing as much damage as he can, and there it is. PuMa repelling that attack, getting lots and lots of damage off, and setting himself in a fantastic lead right now. JYP quite a bit behind. And once more, for the third game in a row, PuMa showing a little bit of dominance early on, and it's really going to be up to JYP to do some sort of damage in return. The thing is, we really haven't seen in any game so far in the series, we haven't seen JYP do a lot of significant damage to PuMa. He's been fairly comfortable for most of these games, and there we go, that factory finished. Reactor finished as well. Starport will be landing right on top of that reactor. We should be seeing that opening up of double medevacs and then moving into Vikings. We've got a few more racks coming out over here as well. There are those two medevacs just churning out those units, and that level 1 weapons upgrade. I'm not sure where that engineering bay even is. Back over here. There it is. Wow, that's a risky position for an engineering bay, but he's feeling comfortable enough, evidently. And we also have PuMa preparing for a third expansion up into the high yield over here. As you can see, he has destroyed those rocks, and here comes that SCV prepared to build that next command center at that high yield expansion. Observer scout moving out for JYP. He sees the forces, but PuMa sees the observer, managing to drop the scan and take it out. That's going to force JYP to actually produce another one. Oh, never mind. He's not too concerned about it. He's got no observers in play, but he's just going straight into another Colossus. He realizes that he needs to make sure he can defend himself against a strong bio push from PuMa. And actually, we've got a Ghost Academy coming out, so PuMa will be prepared to get some Ghost in play, land some clutch EMPs. It's certainly very devastating to that Protoss ground army if you can get those off properly, and especially if we see something like High Templar come into play eventually. Those ghosts become absolutely essential of being able to deal with those properly. One Zealot over here managing to take out a Marine, no problem, slicing it straight in half. We've got a couple of Marines moving over here for PuMa. They will actually be spotting these proxy pylons. Should be able to start to do a little bit of damage, although I expect JYP to just warp in. Maybe 2 Stalkers, 1 Stalker even might be enough to take out these Marines early on. However, with Stimpack, that might not be enough, but JYP hopefully does something to respond to that rather than just losing these. There we go, actually pulling down with those 3 Stalkers rather than warping in any additionals. PuMa scouting out with that factory, moving ahead, and a couple Stim Marines and Marauders actually trying to snipe down that that Colossus. Bulk of the force for JYP, though, will be repelling. One Marauder manages to make it back home. Those Marines mopped up quite handedly by these Stalkers over here. So JYP still managing to defend himself, but that does not mean he's ahead, not even in the slightest right now. We've got a drop planned for PuMa. We'll be going straight into the main of JYP. JYP keeping up that Colossus production. We've got armor level 1 coming through. Weapons level 1 almost done right now for PuMa. And in fact, he's just churning out these Marines Marauders and finally making that transition into Vikings. Now that he has finally spotted those Colossus, we've got a couple Marauders moving down. We'll be taking out that proxy pylon. We should be seeing that drop come as well while this distraction is going on. So here comes the drop. The bulk of the force is moving across the middle for JYP, and here's the drop in the main. We're going to see those Colossus first responders here. They're going to be moving straight up to the ledge. And now what are we going to see from PuMa? Will he try to snipe down this tech, or is he just going to pull back home? He is going straight for that robotics, and he takes it out. Lifts up a few of his units, lost a majority of them, but still taking out the robotics is huge because that severely delays JYP's production, of course, of those Colossus. PuMa sitting very comfortable over there with that third expansion, very well saturated at that high yield. PuMa also just about prepared to move into his fourth expansion over here. Gonna see again PuMa in a dominant position. Resources lost, he's ahead. Let's take a look at the income as well. Certainly strong position as well for PuMa in terms of upgrades. We're looking at the level weapons 1 armor coming through. Mobius Reactor now actually just finishing for those ghosts, giving them that extra energy to land some EMPs. And here we go. JYP is planning a push as he drops his high yield expansion, actually tearing through the SCV count here of PuMa. PuMa pulling forward though with those Vikings, trying to keep those Colossus back. I think he did quite a bit of damage there to the, I mentioned Califatola 9. And we want to attempt another drop here from PuMa. That gets repelled pretty quickly, though, as JYP shows those units there and just forces everything that PuMa has back because he doesn't really want to risk losing that medevac. A couple of Vikings trying to scout out with that factory and hopefully trying to snipe out some Colossus. However, these Stalkers over here will prevent that. Now here comes the bio for PuMa moving up that side. And PuMa looks prepared for an engagement. Where are those ghosts? Hopefully we see them. We've got 3 ghosts total in play. Not actually sure where they are at the moment. There we go. 1 ghost over there, 1 ghost right here as well. Actually, he just wanted to take off that expansion, and look at that. Pretty quick, nice and easy there. JYP losing that high yield expansion, so going to be behind there as a result. And just, again, JYP having to deal with this constant successful aggression from PuMa this entire series. We do have a Dark Shrine coming out, so we will be seeing an attempted transition even to a couple of DT moving out to try to, catch PuMa by surprise and do a little bit of damage. Vikings moving forward. We'll be trying to snipe those Colossus. Pushed back by the Stalkers, though. PuMa looks prepared for an engagement. He's got these ghosts in the back there. Wants to actually pull forward with those to allow him to land some EMPs before the engagement. And here we go. Ghost moving to the forefront. Getting ready to EMP, and still not yet realizing that just a few Stalkers. He doesn't want to drop that EMP until he actually sees the full frontal force here of JYP, and then he will land that EMP to take out and do as much damage as is humanly possible, and then finally engage after that point. Vikings still providing a buffer against those Colossus while the bio just freely moves around the map. That medevac still situated up in the corner. Dark Shrine not finished. We got charge upgrades coming out for the Zealots. And here we go. Vikings pushing forward, and they sniped at least 1 Colossus. There's 3 remaining, and he didn't manage to cancel that expo yet. But it's getting dangerously close, and there we go. Bio engaging. He's going to try to force that cancel once more. Very nice EMP on the bulk of the force there, and some more EMPs. And all of JYP's forces now have no shields, so those Vikings feeling comfortable to push forward with that bio. And PuMa just forcing all of JYP's units back. PuMa is in a tremendous position. We're going to see another EMP, quite possibly. Ghost in the front, and oh my gosh, this is terrible here for JYP. Blink Stalker's trying to get up under those Vikings. Too late, though. He's already lost those Colossus. And there we go, pushing forward, scanning down to take care of any DT that may have been warped in. PuMa shredding through these units, and once more, PuMa looks to have the victory here. Just going to quickly mop up the rest of these forces, take out that natural expansion, and there it is, the GG. What a game number 3, and what a series in general. PuMa taking it quite convincingly, 3-0 against JYP. PuMa just with some very impressive play, and unfortunately JYP really was never able to return that harassment. He was never able to do enough counter harass or take out an expansion to actually make PuMa start to sweat and kind of make him worry about defending himself. Just PuMa was the constant aggressor. JYP consistently defending himself, wasn't able to pull out the victory as a result. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy this series here between PuMa and JYP. Stay tuned for some more StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3 content tomorrow. As always, if you guys like the content, please subscribe. Thank you for watching. Keep watching and keep owning.